The Champions League is back, and there is one game that everyone is talking about: Liverpool versus PSG. The other two games, in my opinion, are practically not a guarantee, but they are as close to as done as you can get. Arsenal will play PSV, and Aston Villa will play Club Brugge. But the team that everyone is talking about is PSG. Can they turn up to Anfield, deal with the pressure, and put in a performance like they did in Paris? Let's not beat around the bush here. PSG were absolutely insane that night. But football can be a very cruel sport. 27 shots against 2. 10 on target against 1. 71% possession against 29. But Liverpool come away with the win. We're going to be looking at all three games this week in the Champions League for the English teams. Make sure you go down, drop a like on the video if you haven't already. Make sure you do hit that subscribe button. We are steamrolling our way towards 50,000 subscribers. And nearly 90% of you who watch the content are not subscribed. So go down and hit that subscribe button. Also, get over to Henry Talks More Henry Talks Football and hit that subscribe button on that channel. We are going to be putting content out there very, 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 very soon. You've also got the Madrid game tonight. I mean, that is absolutely huge as well in terms of who will Arsenal play? Oh, sorry, that's tomorrow. Atletico versus Real Madrid. And I made a bold prediction. I actually think Atletico may win that. But let's talk about tonight. I want to start off with Aston Villa, Club Brugge. That game's on tomorrow. They've got a 3-1 aggregate lead. You know, Aston Villa have found a bit of form recently, you know, beating Cardiff in the FA Cup, then beating Club Brugge, then getting a win away at Brentford, drawing against Liverpool at Villa Park, beating Chelsea at Villa Park, beating Spurs at Villa Park, drawing at with Ipswich at Villa Park. The only defeat they've faced in recent weeks in their last 8 games was away to Crystal Palace. I think with the team that they played against Club Brugge with, you know, Watkins in the 9, Rodgers in the 10, Rashford and Bailey, the one for me who I think is not a nail on to start, but I just think he's got that X factor about him at the moment, and that is Asensio. What a signing he has been, you know, on loan, a really, really experienced player. I'm just trying to find out how old he is. Marcus Asensio is actually, he's 29, just turned 29. Played 1 game in the Champions League this season for Aston Villa and scored a goal. In the Premier League, he's played 4 games, got 2 goals. 2 games in the FA Cup, 2 goals. You know, on loan, is it from PSG? I think he's on loan from. You know, I think Aston Villa will win. I'm going to go with a 2-1 win for Aston Villa. I do think they've got more than enough in the tank to go out there and win. And then, of course, they are still in the Champions League race this season as well. You know, that win against Brentford was absolutely massive for them. I do think they'll have more than enough in the tank, and I think Aston Villa will get the job done. What I would say is, though, if Club Brugge score early, it would make this game very, very interesting. I am going to go 2-1. The other game, which I think is the game which not a lot of people are really looking forward to because they destroyed PSV in the Netherlands, and that is Arsenal up against PSV at the Emirates. I'm going to be honest. I think this game, I think PSV may score, but I'm going to go 2-1 Arsenal or maybe 1-1. The game's done. Arsenal are through to the quarterfinals. You know, they absolutely battered them in the first leg. And it's going to be interesting to see, can Arteta motivate these players for the Champions League? Because let's be honest, they're going to get in the Champions League next season because they'll finish in the top 4. They aren't going to win the Premier League as they're currently, 15, 16 points behind Liverpool. So it's, can he motivate them to keep going in the Champions League? Because that's really the only thing they've got to play for. But with that being said, the way they played against Manchester United, the way that Manchester United had those chances, I do think PSV could get some chances tonight. I'm not saying they're going to crawl back a 6-goal deficit because that's very, very, very unlikely. And let's be honest, if it wasn't for a bit of stupidity from Thomas Partey in the first leg against PSV to give away that stupid penalty, they should have won that game 7-0. Martin Odegaard with a brace, Trossard on the score sheet, Mikel Merino, Calafiori off the bench, Timber, Wanyeri, Mikel Merino. Every single player got on the score sheet. They had 8 shots on target and scored 7 goals. Some diabolical goalkeeping in that game from PSV. They then drew with Manchester United at the weekend. Were, for me, the better team. They did get fortunate. David Raya did make a couple of top saves. The free kick was questionable. But now, I think maybe 1-1 or 2-1 Arsenal. I don't think he's going to play, the strongest of teams. I think he will play a good side, but I think they've got more than enough in the tank to beat PSV. And then the main event, the game in which is a mouth-watering tie, Liverpool up against PSG. Now, I think Liverpool, because of the fact they have got, because they've got, Anfield. Anfield, for me, alongside the Bernabeu, is the 2 hardest grounds in Europe to have an away game at. The stadium, the history, the atmosphere, the aura, the players, the club, everything about Anfield under the lights on a Champions League night. I would not want to be a PSG player tonight. They will fancy themselves, that they, Kvaratskhelia come out and basically said that, the way that they played, they're coming with confidence. They're, of course, coming to get the win. If PSG score early, from a neutral perspective, it would be one hell of a game because Liverpool will come out, attack. I don't think that Liverpool will give PSG the time on midfield. Gravenberch and McAllister and Szoboszlai have to be better than they were in the first leg. You may see Curtis Jones come in. But with all that being said, Salah has to be better than he was in the away fixture. Mendes did a really good job on him, let's be brutally honest. That was one of Salah's most quietest nights, I would say, this season. They have to be better than what they were. I look at where PSG want to go. They've taken out Mbappe. They've got rid of Neymar. There's no more Cavani or Zlatan. There's no really any player there that's got a massive, massive ego. They're a young team. Ousmane Dembele, Barcola, Kvaratskhelia all cause Liverpool huge, huge problems. But I think just because it is Anfield and just because Liverpool are Liverpool, I am actually going to go with a 2-0 Liverpool win. I think Liverpool will win this game. I think Liverpool, if Atletico Madrid beat Real Madrid, I am going to back Liverpool to win the Champions League. The only other team that I think could cause them huge problems is Inter, Bayern Munich, or Barcelona. And of course, they will only play one of those teams due to the next game they will play. One of those will be the final if they get there because they're on the other side of the draw. The Champions League this year is going to be really, really interesting. There's a lot of games on tonight that are, set up for. You look at the Barcelona game, that's going to be very, very interesting. 1-0 up against Benfica. Inter Milan, of course, you'd expect them to get through against Feyenoord. They're currently 2-0 up. Bayern Munich are 3-0 up, going away to Leverkusen. And Liverpool are, playing PSG. So it's going to be really, really interesting tonight. I'm going to back Liverpool, Inter, Bayern, and Barcelona to go through. But if Leverkusen get an early goal, it could be very, very interesting. In terms of, I want to look at both sides of the quarterfinals. Sorry, drops out on the floor. Liverpool versus Aston Villa would be a very, very interesting game. A very, very interesting game. I would back Liverpool to go through, but Aston Villa will not be an easy game. The other side, Arsenal against either Real Madrid or Atletico. That is the worst possible fixture. Either one of those, if you're an Arsenal fan. Now, I do think if it's Atletico Madrid, they have a much higher chance. And who knows? Could Arsenal be about to make history? Could they knock out either of those? They will have Saka back by that fixture. Martinelli is back now. You know, they'd have to be at their absolute best to beat Real Madrid or Atletico Madrid, but crazier things have happened. I do think Real Madrid, the more I think about it, they do have the experience. They're 15 times winners. Probably will beat Atletico Madrid, but I still have a feeling Atletico Madrid may get something. Real Madrid or Atletico Madrid up against Arsenal. You know, of course, either of the Madrids will be massive favourites because Arsenal are decimated with injuries. No Havertz, no Jesus, still no Saka. So you'd probably, a betting man would probably say it'd be a Liverpool versus Real Madrid semi-final. And then who knows? Liverpool have already beaten Real Madrid this season. On the other side of the draw, you know, Borussia Dortmund only drawing 1-1 with Lille. You know, Lille may have something, you know, in store for them back in France. I am going to back Barcelona to get through to the quarters. I am going to back Inter Milan to get through to the quarters. If Leverkusen score early, Bayern Munich aren't the Bayern Munich we saw with Sebastian Schweinsteiger, with prime Thomas Müller, with Lahm, with all these greats. They will be about Neuer as well. I do think Bayern Munich will still get through. I think Bayern Munich Inter Milan will be a very interesting game. I probably over 2 legs would back Inter Milan. I think they're just slightly stronger, especially with Neuer being out. And I think Barcelona will get through. Barcelona Inter Milan, I probably would back Barcelona. And then either Liverpool, Arsenal, or Madrid, or Atletico in the final up against Barcelona. Imagine an El Clasico final. That would be absolutely unreal. That would be unbelievable. Mouth-watering stuff. Make sure you let me know your thoughts down below. Make sure to drop a like. Get your score predictions in for all of the Champions League games. Drop a like. Hit that subscribe button. And I will see you all soon. Thank you for watching. I am out.